Hey, I'm Emanuel.
And I'm Vishal.
And today we're going to take a look at two of the hottest laptops on the market. I've got the new 2016 MacBook Pro with the controversial Touchbar.
And I got the Surface Book here with the detachable screen.
And we've both been using these two laptops for a couple of months now, so we just kind of wanted to give you guys our rundown of what we think of battery life, performance, price, and overall, are we happy with the laptops that we've been using? So Vishal, how do you feel about the Surface Book's build quality?
I really like it. This is probably one of my favorite PCs I've had as far as the look, the feel, how the keyboard and the mouse feel, and the trackpad rather. And that's actually the two of my favorite things about the Surface Book, are how the keys feel.
Mm-hmm.
I'm used to using Mac keys, I've used Windows keys, I've used all sorts, and I just like the tactile feedback I get, as well as just the friction on each of the keys. And that applies also for the trackpad as well. I really like how that feels on the finger. There are a lot of other trackpads out there that are great as well, but I feel like this really suits my needs. And yeah, overall, it just looks like a stunning product overall. It feels really nice, and the display is really crisp and solid.
Cool.
What about yours?
So I love this thing. It feels super solid. Especially with the space gray, it's so sleek. I'm like, totally feel like I'm showing off every time I pull this out of my bag. In terms of, the keyboard and the trackpad, so this was a big change for me. I know they've introduced a butterfly keyboard and the new kind of force touch trackpad that moves away from having that mechanical feel.
Yeah, you can test that out. So you can't really, the key doesn't actually go down that much. But yeah, on the Surface, you can actually hear the click. It's actually depressing.
Yeah. But yeah, I had like a 2012, I think, MacBook Air before, so they've had this out for the MacBook Pro line for a couple of generations now, but I just haven't gotten a chance to really play with it. So it was a really big shift for me. I know some people, I think you included, actually really hate the butterfly keyboard, but I have to say I've absolutely loved it. The typing experience feels amazing. I love the just clicking. I don't know. It's a very like soothing clicking sound that you get from it.
I think
it feels different to the ears.
I think it's a matter of preference. I'd really encourage people to try them out to see for themselves how they feel.
It's very divisive from what it's either people love it or people hate it.
Yeah.
What was surprising for me actually was, I love that the trackpad. Like, look how huge this trackpad is, right? Especially compared to what you'd see on a normal laptop and on previous generations of the MacBook.
Definitely.
So having all that surface area is really nice.
So I guess one of the questions that I have is that actually useful? Because this is relatively smaller, but I wouldn't actually need anything bigger. Do you find yourself taking advantage of that? Or?
Yeah, so I don't use, I'm pretty much always using my laptop as something that's like on my lap or I'm sitting in bed or something, so I never actually have a mouse attached to it. And, I feel like I can navigate so quickly through the operating system, through my apps, be super productive, especially when I'm programming and have a bunch of windows up. Having that surface area is really nice. I never feel like I have to like search for Stratvert or whatever. What is interesting though is like most people love the Force Touch trackpad. I have to say personally, I'm still having some trouble adjusting to it, especially some things like dragging or dropping are more difficult. It often registers like maybe I can even do it now. I can't, but like if I press hard enough, like it always pulls up the dictionary when I'm just trying to like click on something. So I don't know, I'm still having some trouble adjusting to it, and it feels like what I really used to love about the Mac trackpads is that it felt really natural to click on it and didn't like strain my fingers after heavy like clicking around. But I feel like I don't know if I'm overcompensating for not having that mechanical feel, but I feel like I have to press a little bit harder and the resistance doesn't feel quite right when I press. So something feels a little unnatural there, but overall, I mean, I still think, you know, a big reason that I keep buying MacBooks is just the quality of the trackpad, and the total replacement provides for a mouse is like unmatched, right?
For sure.
So
yeah, it's overall pretty solid. I really like the hinge on that. That's actually one thing I wanted to talk about on the Surface Book is, you know, when it came out, a lot of people were interested in the fact that it doesn't actually close flat. And I have to say, this hasn't actually particularly bothered me that much. I've been using this for a ton of time, and I haven't really found too much dirt or anything to go inside there.
it looks unique.
It does look unique. So from a distance, you know, it's not as slick, I guess, as the Mac, but
Yeah.
you definitely know that you're looking at a Surface Book when you see it resting on a table. And to me, it hasn't bothered me, and I think it's pretty neat, actually.
Yeah.
One really interesting part about the Surface Book is that the screen is actually detachable, and you can use it as a tablet, which is great for a couple of reasons. But for me, the biggest thing is the fact that you can use it as a touchscreen. And there's a lot of simple actions that you know, you do with a mouse sometimes, like, you know, moving a folder around, that you can just do so naturally on a surface. For instance, you know, something so simple as just moving a folder around.
Yeah.
No.
You know, I agree with you. Like, a touchscreen seems something that it seems frivolous at first, but I end up having to use a Windows PC for a large part of my day, and you know, I go back home and I use my MacBook, and what actually ends up happening is like my Mac screen gets super smudgy because I end up trying to touch it to do just some basic tasks here and there. It's just something that seems really natural once you get used to it. Scrolling for me, I think, is one that I do all the time on my touchscreen on my PC.
Yeah. One thing that I don't find so great is, you know, sometimes I'll use the tablet mode and, you know, detach it and you know, use it to show maybe a web page to someone.
Okay.
But a lot of the times, and I can demo this real quick, is that, you know, when you take this out and I want to show something to you.
That's really smooth, by the way.
It's really smooth. I definitely like it a lot. The first time I ever did it, it was kind of weird. Like, why do I have to push a button to detach it?
It feels scary, I think.
Yeah, but after you get used to it, it's honestly not a big deal.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's just kind of awkward if I want to show something to you. Like, I'd rather, you know, put it down on a table, at which point we have to look down on it. But it's honestly just more natural to actually have it docked into the keyboard and show you something at an angle.
Oh, interesting.
But what is cool is that if you have the pen, you know, you can start taking notes on it.
Yeah.
Something that I'm not very used to yet, and I'm not a big fan of, but I know a lot of people that actually enjoy that feature, and they use it a lot.
What do you, is there anything you end up, or like, I guess, how much of your time do you end up spending with, you know, the tablet versus just having it plugged in?
I honestly keep it plugged in the majority of the time.
Okay.
Like I said, it's only a couple times where I'll really need to use it in tablet mode. It's just kind of a nice feature to have.
Yeah.
Like you mentioned before, though, there's a one-off cases where you're like, hey, I really want to close that window, but maybe I don't want to touch my mouse or something. Just touch it, and it's very simple.
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess if you're looking at it, you know, if you're someone that's looking at buying a tablet anyways, for whatever reason, like, if you're getting two for the price of one here, so.
Exactly. So one cool thing I heard about the MacBook is that there's a touch bar in there.
Yeah, you know, you call it cool. A lot of people have called it, you know, unnecessary, or asked, why the hell do we need this? But I actually do really like it. It's not something I bought the MacBook for, but I think it's useful even in some very simple, like, daily ways that I use my computer. And what sucks is that it'll need a lot of actual third-party support to have really cool experiences that are integrated in, to actually make it something that I would maybe suggest buying the MacBook for. But you can get some hints from what Apple kind of baked into the OS. You know, even the way that Apple has baked the functionality into some of its, like, OS applications has actually been kind of neat to see. So, you know, one example is if I'm messaging someone off my computer, it's, you know, I'm normally typing along, but I can actually get, you know, whoops, that's not what I wanted. But I can get quick suggestions if I want to add in a word directly from the touch bar.
So how often do you use something like that?
I don't use it for that, but, like, for example, for emojis, right? It's not super simple to add an emoji on a laptop, but, like, the touch bar actually has a really nice scrolling functionality where I can go through and add whatever I want to my messages. And that's contextual just for the Messages app, right? Something that I actually end up using pretty much every day that has been such an improvement over my experience with the other MacBook, or my previous MacBook, was, you know, when I end up taking a screenshot using the keyboard shortcut, before, you select a portion of the screen and then it would just auto-save it to my desktop, and I think you could have gone in and changed location, but I don't want to do that every time.
Yeah.
But what's nice is, the touch bar actually recognizes that I'm taking a screenshot, and it lets me decide where do I want to actually save that thing. So I can just, instead of saving it somewhere, I can just have it go to my clipboard or whatever else I want. So yeah, in small ways, I end up using the touch bar more or less every single day. But there hasn't yet been a defining functionality for it that I would be like, you need to buy this Mac for that touch bar.
Right.
And I guess to address a couple of the concerns or complaints that I have heard, people are saying, is it, I'm going to be missing all this critical functionality that the row of function keys used to play up there. But it's actually been, I think, adjusting the volume screen brightness is actually easier now. You have kind of that fine-tuned control that feels really nice by like touching and moving that slider to exactly where you want it.
Right.
Especially from like the development community, I know I've heard like, the escape button's not going to be there.
Yep.
It's going to be a huge problem, but it seems to always be there when I need it, right? So they do a good job of recognizing context and letting you be able to get the stuff when you need it. So it looks sleek. I've been pleasantly surprised. I'm excited to see, as apps hopefully start taking advantage of it more and more.
Yeah, that's awesome.
One other really cool thing that actually both these laptops have is just a modern way of logging into your computer, right? And I'm the kind of person that I honestly didn't even have a password on my previous Mac because I just hate typing that thing in all the time. But with this latest MacBook, Apple's actually introduced its Touch ID technology that it has on iPhone.
Yeah.
So now basically, every time I open my Mac and I'm at the lock screen, I can just go in at the top of the touch bar. So you can see it says there, log in with Touch ID, and just press my finger down and I'm logged in. No typing needed.
That's really neat.
I know, it's super handy. I know the Surface Book also has something similar.
Yeah, so the Surface Book has a feature called Windows Hello. And essentially, the front-facing camera detects the person's face and if it's the right person or not. And it's pretty handy. Like, I can show you quickly how it works, but essentially, if your screen's here, I can just go in front, make sure it's me, and I'm logged in. I don't even have to touch my laptop.
Wow, that's...
It's pretty handy. I will say that sometimes when I need to log into my computer really quickly, I won't rely on it, and I'll just use the password.
Does it take a little bit? That seems to be pretty fast.
Sometimes. There are moments where it takes a little bit too long. But there are times where I'm not expecting it to happen, and I'll just sit down in my chair and forget I need to even open my computer, and I'll just unlock, and I love that I can just go and start doing my work.
Got it. Cool. So, I think we've covered a lot of kind of the different unique aspects of each of these laptops.
Yeah.
What are the other bullet points? Tell me about the camera, tell me about the screen.
Yeah, it's great having a front-facing and back-facing camera. And the fact that it's a tablet really proves that's useful. I don't use it a ton, but once in a while it's nice to take it out and use it as if it was a traditional tablet.
Got it.
The ports are great. I mean, I got 2 USB ports. I can't really complain. It gets the job done, and I'm overall pretty content.
Got it.
I mean, how are the ports for you?
Again, this is another controversial aspect of MacBook is the fact that it basically did away with every port possible except for 3, 4? I don't even know. 4 USB-C ports, right? Plus, you can actually plug in your headphones, unlike the new iPhone.
Awesome.
It hasn't been as much trouble as I expected. Turns out I actually don't end up using USB drives that often. It does suck. I do a lot of photography, so I don't have anything for my SD cards. But I bought one adapter at this point, and it handles both USB and the micro SD cards for my camera. And I think it cost me $10 off Amazon.
That's awesome.
It's a little weird having to. It feels a little flimsy when it's stuck in. I actually think. What was nice about USB ports is you stick something in, it feels solid, it doesn't feel like it's going to fall out. USB-C, because it's smaller, it feels like, I'm always scared I'm going to accidentally hit it and snap it off or something.
Yeah, that's a worry.
But yeah, the ports haven't been that much trouble. I have to say, I think you can see actually the nice speakers that the new MacBook Pro has. I think it might be Beats speakers or something.
Yeah.
But, we tested them earlier, right? And the sound that was coming out of this was amazing, super rich. You could hear a lot more tonal range, and it actually can crank it up really loud, which is nice. In terms of screen quality, I mean, looking at yours, looks beautiful.
Yeah, it's great.
Obviously, the Retina display is a huge upgrade over what you had before. I had a 2012 MacBook Air. One of the biggest reasons I wanted to upgrade was I really wanted a Retina display, right?
Yeah.
But that being said, I also wanted to have something that was super light and super portable, and that is where I think the new MacBook Pro just absolutely shines, right? Like, I knew I was going to buy this the instant I saw the specs and I saw the weight, which is actually the exact same weight as the previous MacBook Airs. But it has the really nice Retina display and actually has way less bezel on the sides as well.
Yeah.
So you're pretty much getting all screen at a much smaller form factor. And I actually have my previous MacBook Air here as well. So, if I open it up, you can actually see that, like, look how much more bezel this thing has versus the new MacBook Pro. And I think what's really impressive is if you look side by side, they're about the same. This one just doesn't have the tapered design, but if you actually overlay them, I think this is incredible. So same exact usable screen real estate, but look how much smaller the new MacBook is.
That's great.
It's the definition of portability, and that's honestly the main reason that I bought a new laptop, right? Once I went to the MacBook Air, I never wanted something even an ounce heavier, and I didn't want anything that was bigger in size, and this thing gives me incredible performance at like the smallest form factor you can find.
Yeah, no, that's really great. Definitely love the screen and the overall quality of the Surface Book. I will say, yeah, that's one thing I'm a little bit envious of the Mac, is how small and compact it is.
Yeah.
But for the most part, taking this around in my backpack or in a briefcase or something, it's fine and it's light enough. I will say one thing that disappoints me, at least about the screen, is that since the screen is a tablet, the sleep control is at the top.
Oh, interesting.
As well as the headphone jack is located on the screen as well.
That's different.
It is, and a lot of the times I'll be expecting to turn the power on from here, but I'll have to remember that it's at the top.
Yeah. Overall, I've read a lot of things online about, complaining about the new MacBook Pro's battery life. There was the whole Consumer Reports debacle, which apparently claimed that you would get only 2 or 3 hours of battery life or something super low, but Apple pushed out like a software fix to that.
Yeah.
But I had this since before that report came out, and I've never had like terrible battery life with it. But I also wouldn't necessarily say I've had good battery life with it, and I'm up to date with whatever the latest software updates that Apple's put out are. I guess I'm comparing back to when I had my MacBook Air originally, and I just feel like at this point in this machine's life, I'm just not getting the same kind of battery life that I used to get with that other machine. So I'm kind of concerned about further down the line what it's going to be like. But right now, like if I'm just browsing the web or doing basic content creation stuff, I can get a good, I'm thinking 7-8 hours out of it. I don't have any actual measures of that. But yeah, another kind of area I am slightly concerned about is anytime I'm running something that pushes this machine, like even simple game like Rocket League, right? Basically, I think I can get like half an hour of Rocket League time in before I have to plug in. So that can be a little bit brutal at times. But yeah, how's the Surface Book treating you?
Overall, I'm pretty content with the battery life. I usually get in a good day's usage. On average, using anywhere from 6 or 7 applications at a time. Browsing, but also using office applications or anything of the sort, and it gets me through the day, and it's pretty strong. I think one complaint that I do have is that sometimes when I close my laptop and put it in my bag and go home, it doesn't actually close and the battery will continue running. And it's happened to me a couple times where the battery's been completely drained when I needed it, and so that's kind of my only complaint with it. But I'd have to say overall, in tablet mode or as a laptop, it gets me by.
Yeah, I think for, at the end of the day, for how performant both of these laptops are, like the battery life is not a negative, right? And I think that might be reflected in the price. We're on the topic of battery life, though. There is one thing that is probably like one of my top complaints about the new MacBook that I did want to talk about briefly, and that's actually the charging experience, which seems like a small thing, but essentially, as you might know, the old MacBooks used to have this fantastic MagSafe charger, right?
Yep.
So not only would it kind of prevent you from, if you like knock the cord over, it would just easily unplug from your laptop and not drag the whole laptop down off of your table or whatever. But the other really nice part of it is that it has this little light. I don't know if you can see it here. But, you know, when I'd have it plugged in, it would essentially tell me, it'd be orange if the laptop was still charging, green if it was fully charged. But it was really comforting to like look from across the room when I'm about to head out the door and be like, okay, my laptop's plugged in and like my light switch is flipped to the on position.
Right.
So my laptop's actually charging, right? And I'm not surprised when I come back home and want to use it. The chargers on the new MacBook do not have a lot of those benefits. So what the new MacBook does is it only has USB-C ports. So the charging, what is nice is you can plug in the USB-C charger into any of the ports on your laptop. So that is an improvement. But what sucks is, there's no MagSafe experience. So I know I've actually already done this a few times. Basically, if you trip over your cord, your laptop's probably coming off the table with it.
Has it fallen over?
It's fallen over, but I mean, luckily it's only been on carpeted floor so far.
Okay.
But honestly, the most annoying thing that I felt is just the lack of that charging light. And I really hope in future iterations that they bring that back, because right now there's a small ding that plays, similar to like if you plug in your iPhone to charge. But usually I have my sound off, or like I don't remember if I heard that right, and I don't have that same feel good of, hey, my laptop's plugged in, it's plugged into like the correct wall outlet that the switch is turned on, and like I'm walking out the door and I can glance over and be like,
so wow.
It's
how do you tell then if it's charged?
I can't right now, right? I don't know.
Like,
I have to either go all the way back and like, you know, press something to bring up my screen and tell that it is actually charging, or what's kind of happened a few times at this point is I'll come back home, I thought I was charging my laptop all day, and I'm actually at 0% charge because guess what? I forgot to flip on the correct power switch when I left. So
that's unfortunate.
Yeah, what I am looking into is like there are a few third-party adapters I've seen that kind of you can just attach onto the end of the USB-C charging cable they give you to give you that same light. So it's something you can fix with third-party solutions, but if I'm paying the price I'm paying for this machine, I expect those small UX touches to be there, right? You know, I think at this point we've pretty much covered all the kind of unique aspects of each of these laptops and compared the main points between them. You know, in terms of price, there's some slight differences, but at the end of the day, with the accessories you need for each, you're going to be looking at close to $2,000 either way.
Yeah.
So that's not going to be the real difference there. And yeah, they are super premium laptops, but again, for the performance you're getting and for the incredible form factor, like for me and my use cases, it was well worth it.
Basically what you said, at the end of the day, these are both two solid laptops, and you'll be able to get what you want out of both of them. I would recommend trying them out in person, you know, getting a feel for how they type, looking at the displays, the weight, see for yourself. And you know, there are some slight differences in the operating systems, you know, Windows versus macOS, or OS X rather. It's worth trying out for yourself and forming an opinion on, but I think they're both really solid.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, you know, it comes down to personal preferences. It comes down to, does typing on the butterfly keyboard work for you? Or is having a touchscreen really important? Or is that having that tablet mode really important? And really, do you need Windows, or are you okay with Mac OS for doing your work, right?
Yeah.
Or is there an operating system that you prefer? And hey, you know, if what we showed you here today was useful to you, please throw us a like, please subscribe.